What's going on? Welcome in on this Thursday. It's a little Moss Lunchtime Live. Thank you for joining us wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. We appreciate you being here. Feel free to comment along while you're watching along and follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show. Today, we've got a little MLB wild races as we get into the final 17, 18, 16 games, depending on which team you're looking at here. Going to drop a little Satur-Lay as we will every Thursday for college football. 4 games that I've got my eyes on. 4 games that I think, for whatever that's worth, is going to be a place where you might be able to make a little bit of cake. And of course, we got Thursday night football tonight. The Commanders at Lambeau to take on the banged up Packers should be an interesting one. So again, feel free to comment along if you're watching along. But man, we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. And when you get into the baseball races as we come down the stretch, and we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks, there's some really interesting stuff going on right now. And, you know, this is exactly what you want if you're Major League Baseball. And specifically when we get to the American League side is, I think, where we get some pretty crazy stuff. Because when you dive into the schedules that are remaining for the teams that are in the thick of it right now, it's really interesting. It's even more interesting because most of that is controlled by the American League East. You've got not a whole lot of separation in the AL East here. And if you look at this, you know, with the race at the top between the Tigers and the Jays for that one spot, you know, it sets up some kind of interesting matchups. We've got a couple of big games specifically in this race. But if you see the separation there between those top 3, the Jays, the Yankees, and the Sox, it's really interesting, especially when you dive into their schedules. Coming up top of the hour, just a couple past the top of the hour, Houston and Toronto will finish their series up in the Great White North. You've got Christian Javier and Kevin Gausman on the mound for the Jays, and that one obviously plays a lot into a couple of things here. And then later tonight, about 4 o'clock on the left coast, we've got Detroit and New York finishing their series, which has been an absolute massacre by the Tigers over the Yankees so far. The Tigers have outscored the Yankees 23-3 in the first 2 games in the Bronx. Shout out Riley Green. Appreciate the homer last night that made us a couple of bucks here. But as I said, most teams have about 16, 17, 15 games left, somewhere in that race, in that range, as we look at the race. And when you flip it to the wild card side of the American League, it's really interesting. Texas is coming on strong, and I don't think that's a surprise by anybody. TJ and I talked about it on last night's show. Bruce Bochy, he knows how to get a team to click down the stretch, and the Rangers have dealt with so many injuries this year. And the fact that they're in this race, and Mac and I talked about this at the beginning of the year, we thought Texas was arguably the most dangerous team in the American League, maybe in all of baseball, because of their lineup. It's their pitching that's been really damn good and why they're in this position. But if you're going to ask me to lay some money on somebody down the stretch with a hot baseball team, it's always going to be Bruce Bochy. For Texas, they're in New York this weekend to take on the Mets. Then they have Houston. Then they get Miami and Minnesota. And they finish with Cleveland, as you can see right behind them there. You got Ross checking in. We appreciate it, Ross. I really want to see the Rangers get there because, again, it's the Bruce Bochy factor, and that's exactly what it is. But this is all controlled by the American League East. Boston has 15 games remaining. Obviously, this weekend, the big one with the Yankees. Then they play the Western Sacramento Nomads. Shout out RJ, the computer geek, for that one. And I'm going to tell you right now, and we did talk about this a little bit last night, this A's team, because we forget about them, a lot of us want to just, we're in that tough position when it comes to John Fisher, because he's a dirtball and a sleazeball and other names you can insert here whenever you want to. This A's team has a really good core, and they're really good late in games. They battle. They got to Aroldis Chapman yesterday. Shea Langoliers doubles in the top of the ninth. Rooker moves him, and the Law Dog Lawrence Butler knocks him in. I think any of these contending teams that do have to deal with the A's down the stretch, it's not a walk in the park. After the series against Sacramento, then Boston has Tampa, then they're at Toronto, and they finish with Detroit. So when you look at Boston's remaining 15 games, the Yankees, the Jays, and the Tigers, when you look at the Yankees, it's a lot easier for the Yankees. They play the today against Detroit, then they're at Boston this weekend. But then they've got Minnesota, Baltimore 7 times, and the White Sox. Make that for whatever you will. As far as Toronto goes, Baltimore at Tampa 4 times, then they have Kansas City on the road, Boston, and they finish with Tampa. Cleveland, they're hanging around. They do have an ending series against Texas, which could be huge. And Kansas City, anybody that's watched this show long enough, you know how I feel about Bobby Witt Jr. and my love for the Royals, but the Royals are up against it. Listen to these next 9 games. At Philly, then they have Seattle, then they have Toronto, then they have the Angels, and the aforementioned pesky Athletics. But again, you go back to the American League East that controls everything. The revamped bullpen for the Yankees that we thought was going to be huge has actually been worse than Anthony Volpe's defense, if you can believe that or not. That's how bad they've been. You got Holton and Schlittler tonight. Seattle-Houston winner, if we were to look at it right now, goes to Toronto. The Boston-New York winner goes to Detroit. Again, Toronto and Detroit separated by a half game. So we could be setting up a situation where Seattle and Houston winner goes to Detroit, and the Yankees-Boston winner goes to Toronto. Do I like that? No, not necessarily. When we look at it from the National League side, it's a lot more clear for the most part. We know Philly is going to be there. Click the right button, dumbass. We know Philly's going to be there. We know Milwaukee's going to be there. The Cubs are very clear at the top. Now, I took this picture before the conclusion of the Reds game. So if you looked at the standings right now, the Reds actually hold the tiebreaker over the Giants. Diamondbacks, a pulse, but barely. The Cardinals, same thing. And the Cardinals' schedule, they're going to have to get hot, stay hot, finish hot just to get in. So it's really, we're looking at the Mets, we're looking at the Giants, we're looking at the Reds. We might be looking at the Padres, who are playing just downright horrible right now. But New York holds the tiebreaker over both Cincinnati and San Francisco. Cincinnati holds the tiebreaker over San Francisco. So the only thing that's really kind of left to decide, if you will, and calm down, Padres fans, I know technically you can still win the West. Right now, you just need to hope you're going to stay in the playoff race. And I think they're safe with where they're at. But stranger things have happened. And they don't have any head-to-heads with the Dodgers left. So that's kind of out of their control. Ironically, the Padres need to kind of be Giants fans right now. Because the Giants have 7 games left with the Dodgers. It's fascinating stuff. And I hammer Rob Manfred all the time for the way the schedule works in baseball. And I still don't like it, but the way it sets up for who's in the race right now, very, very interesting stuff. We talked about this a few times. And I know the temperatures dip in October, especially in some of these cities that are going to be hosting playoff games. I don't know if there's a pitching staff that could make the playoffs that I trust really at all. Off the top of your head, you would say Seattle, but they haven't been as great as they typically are. They're still really good. You're the Padres. Who are you going to roll out there? And I love Michael King. I could rave about Michael King, but the dude hasn't been healthy all year, so he's a wild card for the Padres in a wild card series. Nick Pavetta's been nails. 8 strikeouts last night. Appreciate you, Nick. That put some money in our pocket. But honestly, the pitching staff that I would trust the most in the postseason is a team that's still on the outside looking in, and that's Texas. It's fascinating stuff here. I can't wait to see what happens, especially over the next couple weeks. It's a great time to be alive as a sports fan right now. So many things going on in the sports world. So, again, feel free to comment along. If you think your team's got World Series potential, let me know. But we know we're going to get, as I said, in the National League, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, the Dodgers, the Cubs, most likely the Padres. We're really looking at the Mets, Giants, and Reds. It's going to be an interesting finish. College football this weekend, we've got some really good games. And typically when I give you a Satur-Lay, it's Saturday games. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. On our social channels, the Big Mac kickoff tomorrow night is going to be Alabama, Wisconsin. I'll have South Florida and Miami, which I think is going to be a really interesting game. That'll be on Saturday. And then TJ After Dark will be A&M and Notre Dame. But when I put the Satur-Lay out there, I'm looking for 4 games on a Saturday that I really like. As we say all the time on the program, play them straight, play them together, play them both ways. That's entirely up to you. There weren't 4 games on the schedule that I felt very confident about as far as Saturday goes. So in a rare appearance here, we're going to drop this one. And this is tonight. And not a lot of people will watch it because there's Thursday night football. But NC State at Wake Forest, they're both 2-0. Both teams averaging over 400 yards a game. Wake allows 275 on defense. NC State's defense is atrocious. 463.5 yards a game. That's what the Wolfpack is giving up right now. 463 yards a game. And again, we're talking about game 3 for both of these teams. It's not like they've really played world beater schedules. NC State's 127th in the FBS on defensive third down percentage. So because I only had 3 games that I really feel comfortable with as far as Saturday goes, this one's going to make an appearance on the Satur-Lay, even though it's on Thursday. I can do that. I think there's going to be a hell of a lot of points in this game. I'm taking the point total over 51.5. Then we go to Saturday, where last weekend, this guy, John Mateer and the Sooners, they knock off Michigan in Norman. Mateer's looked really, really good for Oklahoma so far. Last week, I thought that game, the final score was not indicative of what the game was actually like. But I've got big-time concerns when it comes to Oklahoma's running game. Temple, they beat up Howard and UMass for whatever that's worth. They come in also 2-0 in this game. This game's being played at the Link in Philadelphia. So, interesting setup here for this game. Again, Temple's 2-0. Oklahoma comes in ranked and off of the impressive win against Michigan. But John Mateer is the leading rusher for the Sooners at 98 total yards in 2 games. And those 2 games were against Illinois State and Michigan. If the Sooners are going to be successful this year, they have to get something from the running game. And John Mateer can't be their leading rusher. And I think you saw that in the game against Michigan, where Oklahoma had some opportunities to get some additional scores there, and they just couldn't close the deal. If they continue to do this and Mateer has no running game, the Sooners are going to crash and burn really, really fast. Also interesting to note in this game, Oklahoma had a presser the other day, hot mic. Hot mics are always dangerous. And it caught somebody from Oklahoma's side saying, playing Temple, it's like a high school game. Maybe Temple uses that, maybe they don't. Everybody's motivated differently. Until I see a run game, one-dimensional Oklahoma is not going to sell me. This game opened at a 25.5 point spread. I jumped on it when it got down to 21.5, and I am going to take the points and take the Owls in this game. And again, I could be way wrong, but until I see a running game from Oklahoma, that one-dimensional doesn't really sell me that they're as good as their ranking. And again, we talk about it all the time. Preseason rankings are really just for TV purposes, and that's all they are. They're not worth a damn. As you can see, Florida's no longer ranked. South Florida wasn't ranked. Now they are. You know, Notre Dame's ranking, and they've only played, the one game. It's another week or two before we really, really see who's who. As I said, Mac will have this game on Friday night, the Big Mac kickoff game. Wisco and Alabama. Danny O'Neal replaced Billy Edwards for Wisconsin due to an injury in week 1. Wisconsin's offense, they looked a lot better. O'Neal set a Badger record with 283 yards in his debut. Whether it's Edwards or Neal here, Does it really matter is the question. Alabama's expected to get all-world wide receiver Ryan Williams back. Hopefully he has no ill effects from the concussion in the Florida State game. Because, again, I've said it a couple of times, but if you haven't seen Ryan Williams play, we all know Jeremiah Smith, how damn good he is at Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams are like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. You can flip-flop the names, the attachments, whatever. Everybody flipped the hell out when Florida State beat Alabama in week 1. Last week, Bama goes and they take care of ULM 73-0. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. But here's the thing. Last year, Bama, who struggled to win games on the road, went into Camp Randall and beat the living hell out of Wisconsin 42-10. Now, Wisconsin has to go to Bryant-Denny. You got your ass kicked last year in your home stadium by a team that struggled to win on the road. Now you're going to Bama. And, you know, it's not surprising. There's always blood in the water, if you will, at Alabama. And Kalen DeBoer, I think, is in a tough spot. He replaced one of the best at any level of football to ever coach in Nick Saban. Alabama wants wins. Alabama fans want wins. This is, you know, say what you will about Wisconsin, but this is a game that Alabama can make kind of a statement and say, hey, yeah, we lost to Florida State. And remember, Florida State might actually be good. We don't know that for sure yet. They looked damn good when they handled Alabama. Alabama looked like they were going through the motions in that game. TJ says it all the time in the Wisconsin situation, whether it's O'Neal or Edwards, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. I know this is a huge number, but rinse and repeat for me. Bama blasts Bucky again. They're going to cover the big number, minus 20.5. Now, I know this part is going to be hard for you, so bear with me on this one. And I want you to sound this out in your head. There won't be any math on the program, but there might be some spelling here and there from time to time. Spell this out. Sam and Pittman, Lane and Kiffin, Mississippi and Arkansas, Vaught and Hemingway, Razorbacks and Rebels. Give you a second to process that in your head. What did you get out of all of that? There wasn't a D anywhere to be found. The only D in this game will be that it's being played in Oxford. Ole Miss, 575 a game, 6th in the FBS. Arkansas, 591 a game, 4th in the FBS. I get it. Your combined opponents for these 4 teams, or for these 2 teams, the 4 opponents they've played. Alabama A&M, Arkansas State, Georgia State, and Kentucky. Kiffin and Pittman, this is their 5th meeting. They're 2-2 against each other. The average point total in the 2 games, or in the 4 games, when Kiffin and Pittman have played against each other, 78.2. There's not going to be a lick of defense played in this game. This total keeps going up. I'm okay with that. It's over 61.5. That's your play. Fade me, follow me, whatever you want to do there. Now, if you're getting froggy and you want to put those 4 games together, depending on which site you like to use, plus 1108, I got it boosted to a plus 1663. So over 51.5 tonight with the NC State and Wake Forest. Temple plus the 3 touchdowns in the hook. Alabama minus 20.5. And because there won't be a lick of defense played when those 2 guys match up against each other like there never is, over 61.5 Ole Miss and Arkansas. There's other great games this weekend. Those were the 4 that I felt the most confident with. Again, on our social channels, at Mike Arana Show. Mac has Bama and Wisco. That'll be tomorrow night. When that drops, I'll have South Florida and Miami, where College Game Day tried to go. They wanted to be there. They were basically rejected from Hard Rock Stadium in the city of Miami. So College Game Day is at another one of the big ones this weekend, Tennessee and Georgia. Very interested to see how that one plays out. Joey Aguilar for Tennessee. The offense has looked really, really good. Gunnar Stockton, we've talked about this a lot. What kind of quarterback is Gunnar Stockton? He's been a winner at every level. Now he's going on the road to Neyland. There is no love lost between these two teams. How does he handle that environment? That's going to be very interesting to see. Texas A&M Notre Dame, which will be the TJ After Dark game on Saturday. That one's going to be a fun one as well as we roll through another week of college football. Texas Tech, I liked that game until it got up to about 23.5. They are playing Oregon State, which I know shouldn't be a challenge for them. It got too high for me. I was uncomfortable with the number. Again, we're not trying to get rich here. Just trying to make a couple bucks. Thursday night football tonight from Lambeau Field, and we've got some interesting stuff in this game. The Packers absolutely banged up, if you can and if you will, right now in the early season. Not quite like 49er banged up, but I mean, what would a season be for the 49ers if they didn't have injuries? If you've been living under a rock, you've got Mac Jones. And Mac Jones is not just going to be the starter Sunday in New Orleans. Mac Jones is probably looking at anywhere from 3 to 4 starts with Brock Purdy's injury. It's a variation of turf toe. So no Kittle. You've got no Purdy. You've got Mac Jones and Spencer Rattler. But back to Green Bay and this game tonight. The Packers kind of look like a mash unit early in the season. Their entire wide receiver room's banged up. Rookie Matthew Golden's got an ankle injury. He's going to play. How effective can he be? Their entire wide receiver room is banged up. More importantly, for Green Bay, Aaron Banks, questionable ankle injury. Zach Tom, dealing with an oblique injury. Depending on where you're looking at your injury reports, he's not on it as far as this morning goes. That's 2 guys on your offensive line. And I really, really do, and a couple people thought I was crazy, including my 2 partners on this program, TJ and Vegas Mac, that I think this Washington defensive unit is going to be really, really good this year. I don't know how much stock you can take into last week's game for the Commanders, because Russell Wilson is absolute ass. 17 for 37. A Giants situation's bad, especially with their schedule. So I don't know how much stock we can put into Washington last week. But I love Trey Amos. I love the veterans that they have on this group. Last year, the secondary was not good. Yep, pretty much. Russell being Russell last week. A Giants situation's bad. But I think their defensive unit in Washington has huge potential. They got their shiny new toy on the offensive side, Deebo Samuel. 8 touches, 96 yards. A touchdown. Cliff Kingsbury is a mad scientist. And we've talked about it a bunch of times over the last several weeks. Some guys are just great coordinators. They're terrible head coaches. Cliff Kingsbury is that guy. Maybe he's the better head coach if he gets another opportunity down the road. But I think tonight you'll see a little bit of Kingsbury using Deebo as a decoy. I think he's still going to get his touches. But Deebo Samuel's such a Swiss Army knife. I think you're going to see a little more usage of Austin Eckler tonight. Green Bay plays a lot of zone defense. And I think Eckler gets more involved in the game. But they have so many weapons, Washington does. So many weapons on that offense. And obviously, the Green Bay personnel is very familiar with Deebo Samuel's game. I think the most important thing tonight is you got to figure out how to neutralize Micah Parsons. And there's really only one way to do it. And the teams that were successful in beating Dallas, save your Cowboys jokes, were the teams that would go after Micah Parsons. You got to run after him. You got to run right at him. Zone reads. Deebo Samuel and jet sweeps, stuff like that. You got to remember there's another play in this game that I don't think is getting a lot of attention. It's those two guys. Dan Quinn, more familiar with Micah Parsons' game than anybody. So I'm sure the conversations, especially preparing for a game on a short week where you're traveling like the Commanders are, between Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury this week have been centered on the Micah Parsons factor. If Washington is able to go after him with the run, utilize the zone read tonight, it's early in the season. It's not like we're dealing with the frozen tundra at Lambeau Field. We're not. It's early. Beautiful in Wisconsin right now. Place will be rocking. It always is. I think this is a really good matchup, especially for early in the season. And we have some really good matchups. We'll get a little more into those tomorrow, but like Broncos, Colts, obviously Chiefs, Eagles. I like both Monday night games, Bucks and Texans, Raiders and Chargers. So this is a really good game for early in the season. And what did we bitch and complain about in past years is that the Thursday night football games are typically a snooze. Well, this one's not. Yeah, there are a couple on the schedule that are going to be like that, but this one's going to be really, really good. And your initial inkling in your head, your initial thought, your initial, hey, Washington's traveling, short week, on the road, a good Green Bay team. I've said this a bunch of times. I'm still not 100% sold on Jordan Love. Not yet. I think he's going to be great, and he's going to be great for a long time. But he's also got a lot of young receivers, and he's got young, banged-up receivers already. Probably going to see Tucker Kraft get some utilization again tonight. Obviously, when you got the bowling ball in the backfield, Josh Jacobs, that helps any young quarterback out a lot. Very fascinated to see the quarterback play tonight between Love and Jaden Daniels. If you missed the triple option this morning on the program, on our social channels, I should say, at Mike Arana Show, the play for me tonight is pretty simple. I'm going to play Jaden Daniels over 21.5 completions. I'm going to play Terry McLaurin for a touchdown. Odd to see him not score last week. And again, I think with what Washington put on tape in week one in their new offense with Deebo Samuel there, again, the Packers are very familiar, and a lot of the Packers personnel very familiar with Deebo Samuel. So I think the attention that Deebo will draw tonight, utilizing Austin Eckler a little bit more, I think Terry McLaurin's a great play for a touchdown tonight. So that was my second play for tonight. Scary Terry to find the painted area for 6. And I am taking the Commanders at 3.5, at plus 3.5. Yes, I did sprinkle on the money line a little bit too. But I like the Commanders in this spot. I think the general consensus when Green Bay got Micah Parsons, because you saw their odds shoot up by 400. I think they were 1,800 to win the Super Bowl before the Parsons trade, and they went to like 1,400. Don't exactly quote me on that, but it was a pretty sizable jump. And understandable. I mean, you're talking about arguably the best defensive player in the NFL. So, again, depending on who you talk to. But I think a lot of this is people just going, what's up, guys? Urban Rod's checking in. Again, if you're a follower of our show, follow their show. Guys do a great job, dialed in when it comes to the SEC especially. You're going to see one of them, both of them on this program on these lunch hours at some point, Thursday and Fridays. Couple other notes. Should I check it in? You saw the video on Monday night. I was a little miffed at the Bears because they bared at the end of that game. But yeah, tonight I'm going to the plus 3.5. I did sprinkle the money line. A couple other plays I like tonight in this game. I did play the game over 48. I think you could see some points tonight. Typically the defenses are ahead of the offenses, but I think you're very likely to see a defensive touchdown tonight. I played Eckler for an anytime touchdown as well. As I said, I think they're going to utilize him. I also played Eckler to have 4 receptions. Zone defense. And one of the things I think that is most impressive about Jaden Daniels in his young career, and Jordan Love does a lot of the same thing, but Jaden Daniels, especially last year being a rookie, he's really good at just taking what the defense gives him. And that's why I think Eckler for 3, you can ladder him tonight. I know a few of my friends that are doing that, 3, 4, 5 catches. I don't know if he's going to quite get to 5. But I played him for 4 catches tonight. I think you're going to see a lot of Eckler. I think you're going to see Daniels take advantage of what the defense gives him. I think, yeah, you might have a bunch of these guys actually in the lineup tonight for the Packers. But it is a short week for the Packers. I know they didn't have to travel, and they played at home last weekend, but injuries are injuries. And if you're a wide receiver and you're dealing with a bum ankle, especially if you're Matthew Golden, and again, it's not just Golden, it's their entire wide receiver room. So I like the Commanders tonight, plus 3.5. I like them also on the money line. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. So plenty of stuff. Tomorrow we'll recap what we see tonight. We'll take a peek at some of the NFL games going forward, talk a little bit more about college football, but a lot of fun stuff. We're about 3 or 4 minutes away from that Jays and Astros game. Again, the American League East kind of controls the entire American League picture. So we'll be back in the spot tomorrow. We'll recap what we see tonight. We'll talk a little bit more about the weekend. Next week on Tuesday, we'll be back in our 5:30 spot. I'll have Mac with me, no TJ. Next Wednesday, it'll be all 3 of us. But the lunch hour is here, man. Make your plans on Thursdays and Fridays to join me in this very spot. I've got some great guests lined up that'll also be joining me in this space. Vegas Mac will be in a bunch of these. TJ will be in a bunch of these. Both of them on assignment right now. But it's going to be a damn good weekend of football, and it starts tonight. Got a couple Friday night games we're taking a peek at tomorrow on the college football side as well. So for everybody behind the scenes, for Vegas Mac, for TJ, we'll be back with us shortly. Feel free to follow us. Tag your friends. Tell your friends. At Mike Arana Show on all the social channels. Until tomorrow, have a good rest of your day. We're out.